The air, water, earth, and sun awes us. The four awesome forces of nature can provide 1,000 times more energy than we need. You are also awesome. You and me and all Earthkind are the fifth element. We are literally changing the world. Technology is now harnessing nature's awesome power for electricity, heat, and transportation. And the best news is that the clean energy transition can save us money and create a more prosperous, just, beautiful, and sustainable civilization today. Welcome to the Awesome Earthkind podcast. If you were, let us know who you are, where do you work, where do you live, and what do you do?
Thanks, Ron. My name is Ariel Fan, and I'm the founder and CEO of GreenWealth Energy. We're proud to be the first woman and minority-owned EV charging company certified in all of California. Myself, as a female person of color founder, we make up 0.3% of all the entrepreneurs and owners of companies in the clean energy space. So we're out there proud, loud and proud, bearing the flag of diverse companies, small and disadvantaged companies everywhere. My company, GreenWealth, we are based in Pasadena, California, and operate throughout the state, developing EV charging stations. We are partnered with ChargePoint, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the United States. And what we do specifically is we help commercial and multifamily businesses and buildings transition to the clean energy future by deploying EV charging stations and also getting incentives, whether that's utility rebates, state grants, or federal tax credits. And so under one roof, we have construction, design, engineering, and also rebate procurement capabilities.
Outstanding. You do that just on the West Coast? You do it across the country, international?
You know, I'm glad you asked. Today we are just in California. We're strongly based in Southern California, but we are growing, and I'm actually in the process of raising our seed round to have a presence throughout all the major cities throughout California, from the Midwest to the East Coast.
Nice. So going to cover the whole country soon. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we like to start out with a quantum quote, kind of a perspective that helps shift people's mindsets. And do you have one you'd care to share?
Yes. So my quantum quote is very personal to me. It's short, and I heard it when I was really young. It's pressure makes diamonds. And the reason it's a quantum quote for me is being a woman, being a person of color who's entered the clean energy industry without money, without resources, or an extensive career before I started my company at the age of 24. I take pressures as a challenge. Whenever I think of this quote, pressure makes diamonds, it's just, you have to endure. And within these words, it's so elegant and short, but I'm reminded that it is because of so many other people in my circumstances who have endured and endured much more.
Wow.
So that's my quantum quote.
I love it. That's great. I'm a type A personality myself, and I found out in college when I was taking my GREs, LSATs, and GMATs that the one that I got up late for and was all stressed out and went in and was all flustered, I actually did the best on, and it was the one that I was all relaxed and did my yoga beforehand, went in, meditated, and everything else. I did like significantly less good. So pressure makes diamonds. I love it. That's great. All right. Well, why do you focus on electric vehicles and clean energy?
Oh gosh. So why electric vehicles? It's really, we're at the precipice of a complete overhaul of 100-plus-year-old industry. That's the automotive industry. Throughout the entire period of mankind, we've relied on fossil fuels, we've relied on combustion engines, and with this new administration, with what's happening in the world, not only do we have governmental support, people are changing their minds with consumers, they're buying differently, And we have the entire transition of the automotive industry into electric. I remember when I was young, environmentalism and things related to the environmental field, helping the earth, sustainability, these were nice to haves. It was a fuzzy feeling, but it's just such a privilege to work in this industry at this point in time, because it's the biggest economic opportunity of our entire lifetimes. This is a once, not in a generation, once in multiple generation event where we completely transform the way that we think about transportation, vehicles, the purchase of the vehicles, our waste, our impact. And in the current federal administration, it's also equating to hundreds of billions of dollars across many, many years, decades. And we're just at the beginning. We're scratching the surface. And it's so fascinating seeing what's in the news, seeing what companies like Apple, T-Mobile, Disney are coming out saying by 2030, we're going to be 100% carbon neutral. Garcetti in LA, 2035, carbon neutral. California, no more carbon combustion vehicles in the entire state by 2035. And the fact that these announcements just came out within the last 18 months, it's galvanized the industry. There's no other industry out there aside from tech that is more frequently cited in the news, online. It is the hottest thing. All these charging companies that used to be startups only a few years ago are all going public under SPAC, and the entire industry is being galvanized. So it's not only just great for the environment and just so interesting, but it's just like a hurricane right now of activity, and we're lucky to be part of the ride.
Outstanding. So you guys specifically focus in on the charging station infrastructure, not on the fleets though, right?
We actually do fleets too. So what we do, there's two specific customer segments or types of charging systems. You either have commercial, this is your run-of-the-mill government or private business, and then fleet. And we started out doing commercial, helping governments, private businesses, small and big businesses convert to EV charging. And what we're finding now is that big companies like Disney, like the cities and the governments, they're through compliance required to convert their fleets to electric buses, vans, cars, light and medium duty, and they need help. Frankly, there are not too many practitioners right now because EV and charging infrastructure is such a nascent and emerging industry. The people in charge, they haven't even had that much experience, and there's so much room. And so us being in the right place, the right time, we do serve our customers. And instead of customers coming to us with a few charging requests, they're coming to us with bigger questions like, I have 160 vehicles in our fleet. How do I begin to think about electrification? And this comes down to, what vehicles are you picking? What are the operations of the vehicles? How do you think about batteries for the vehicles and the lifespan of the batteries? How do you pair charging so that you consider the speed in which the charging is taking place, whether you can afford a slower overnight charge, or you need to just charge and have a full charge within the next 20 minutes. So we help our business at GreenWealth Energy. We synthesize all this information for our customers with fleet needs, because and frankly, we're absorbing and we're doing research on this and learning all the time too. It's the first time cities, it's the first time public companies are approaching these gigantic fleet and electrification issues. And it's a pleasure to be able to learn together with our clients.
So, in the charging infrastructure world, you've got level one, which is just a trickle charge, plug it into a regular socket overnight. And that's usually good for, most families that have single family residents, right? You just plug it in, and 98% of people's trips are less than 50 miles, most parts of the country. So, a trickle charge with a regular socket overnight in their garage, that does everything they need. But then you get into level two, which is 220 volt, and that's a lot faster. And that seems to be the predominant of the sort of public stations out there. And then you get into the DC fast charge chargers with 440 volts and kind of that 80% of a charge in 20 minutes or so. So when you're talking to your customers, do you have that full range of opportunity on the commercial sector, or and just give a couple of examples of some clients that you've worked with and what you found and those experiences?
Yeah, geez. Thank you for asking such a broad question. So to recap for the audience, how to think about charging. Level one, the typical charge your plug in into any outlet at home. You might be able to get a full charge between 12 and 16 hours. That's 120 to 277 volt. Level two is the majority of the charging stations out there. And in total across the US, there are about 150,000 ports. These level two chargers, they take between 4 to 6 hours for a full charge. And then when you think about DC fast chargers, which is the level three chargers, and also the Tesla superchargers are of this type, you can get a full charge between 20 minutes to 45 minutes on a fully electric car. So when we think about what to propose for our customers, us at GreenWealth Energy, we are manufacturer agnostic, and we are a provider and distributor of level two and level three stations. So everything outside of the single family home, that's what we do. And when it comes to proposing for our customers, we think about two different things. Firstly is what do they need? So a workplace charging station or a workplace environment, business is trying to have an amenity for their employees to charge or visitors to charge, echo their commitment to environmental stewardship. But you don't really have the transients or the movement of, let's say, a retail center. So one of the groups that we have been working with is The Grove. That's the #1 highest grossing per foot retail shopping center in all of the United States, in Glendale, California. And for them, they have a high traffic of vehicles moving in and out of their garages every day. So what's important for them is they care about the turnover of their parking stalls to make room for more guests to charge. So we do a mix of level two and also level three. When you think about fleet applications, we just did a site assessment for an LA Metro project. And this was a large open parking lot where all the buses go to sleep at night. And this is the city buses. There are vans. There are just pedestrian Priuses. And we think about, for them, we do need to have a mix of overnight charging, because they don't utilize 100% of the vehicles all the time. But we need to have a place for these vehicles to essentially go to sleep at night and charge passively. At the same time, when things are bustling and things are getting very busy, we do need also to think about their usage and the ability of, let's say, a fully electric bus to come in, get a full charge as fast as it can, and then get back on the road. So we consider these things. Aside from usage, the #2 thing we consider when proposing to customers is thinking about rebates holistically. And Ron, I'll give you a little bit of a secret sauce of the industry. You're not going to find any manufacturer talking about this. So this is really the golden nugget of this interview. So when thinking about rebates and public funding, there are a few places to look. You have the rebate programs that 90 or so percentage the public funding today for charging infrastructure exists at the utility level. So we look at the utility rebate programs. There's also, what people don't know, grant programs at the regional air quality district level. There's some state programs. So in the state of California, that takes the form of a program called Cal EVITP or Cal EVIP. There's also programs from the California Energy Commission. And there are different incentives for level 2 or level 3 stations. And a lot of the time, our customers ask us to help them with two different things. Firstly, they want to know, how do I maximize the rebate? How do I get smart about this? And #2 is, where is compliance heading, and how can you help me comply in the most efficient way? So in the state of California, starting in 2022, all new construction buildings must have at least 10% of all of their parking stalls be EV capable. And to meet these goals, we do a combination of the different types and a combination of the different rebates. The golden nugget, as I said, that manufacturers don't want to know about is there's another layer of revenues and funding for the chargers, which are called low carbon fuel standard credits, or LCFS credits. So this is a carbon credit that is generated from the usage of the charging station. Anytime a driver comes to fill up some juice for their car, the data is stored within the charging station of a networked smart charging station. And you can sell those credits on the open market. Just like gold or steel fluctuates in price, it becomes an environmental commodity that you can sell. So traditionally, manufacturers have been collecting all of these credits secretly. For Tesla, for example, they reported their 2020 earnings and they made passively $586 million on selling these credits alone. It's just passively collecting revenues upon the credits for charging stations that exist out there in the wild for these supercharging networks. So what we're doing at GreenWealth, we believe in democratic access and equal access to the clean energy revolution, which means transparency and helping make sure it's not only the privileged that get these resources. And what we do is we do LCFS credit or carbon credit processing for our customers. So instead of the manufacturer traditionally taking everything secretly, we will do a revenue share with our customers, be able to cover our costs for the brokerage of these credits, but let the end user and let the businesses themselves have access to this continuous stream of rebates. So we consider, to recap, the carbon credits, the rebates from the utility and state levels, and also the usage. And together with these different elements, design a system that is the smartest way to implement charging infrastructure for our clients.
Excellent. So since you mentioned Tesla and you also said that you're a distributor of ChargePoint, so let's talk about the difference between the Tesla chargers and charging system and everybody else's that uses ChargePoint, if you would.
Yeah. So the model for Tesla is really interesting. They're the only manufacturer out there. Their business is not charging. Their business is the vehicles, but their network cannot exist without the chargers. So by necessity, by them being first in the market, they have to make sure that their vehicles out in the wild have a place to charge. And charge quickly too, because they are fully electric and don't have any sort of hybrid reliance on gas. So how they're different, how Tesla is different from ChargePoint or a Blink or these other charging companies is they go out and they're the owner and operator. So you can't actually buy a Tesla supercharger, even if you wanted to, because they canvas different sites and they identify sites that are the highest traffic. And then they rely 100% on these low carbon fuel standard credits in order to fund the construction, in order to fund the equipment. When it comes to ChargePoint or Blink or others, they go through distribution. Any business can install these charging stations, and they own the data. They're able to fully collect on the revenues, and so it's just a different model. In terms of usage too, Tesla vehicles can only charge with Tesla chargers. And if you use a universal charger, you have a different adapter. So whereas all other vehicles that are not Tesla vehicles, they all have universal ports or a universal charging component to them.
Right. So only Tesla people can use the Tesla chargers, but Tesla people and everybody else can use everybody else's chargers.
Exactly.
Okay? Yep. So very, very interesting and fascinating. So the low carbon fuel standards, is that just in California or how many states have those? Because I know New York is working on it, but we do not have one yet.
Yes. So it's the industry is emerging and they're looking to California because California has over 50% of all the electric vehicles sold in the United States in this state. And they also pioneered the low carbon fuel standard program. Today, California, I believe Washington and New York is considering it. Canada is also in the works of developing their own program. But aside from these states, it's a very new program, and I think a lot of people are looking to California as a case study and a model to see what works and what has not worked in order to develop their own programs. But without a doubt, I have no doubt that this will be the future and a necessary vehicle to make sure at the federal level we're able to build out infrastructure in a timely way that is cost effective, because without these financial incentives, building infrastructure today is just way too expensive for businesses.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So very fascinating. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future of charging and where things are going to go. And you mentioned specifically buses, and I've done some work in New York City with Con Ed and looking at the Metropolitan Transit Authority and what they want to do with buses. And their challenge is that when the buses come in, running wires to every bus gets really tough. Plus, like you said, sometimes they need to have charges some along the route. So are you guys also doing on route and or induction type of charging where you don't have to plug right in, is just a kind of magnetic transfer of that energy? Is that something that you guys are looking at, and how does that all work?
Yeah. So Ron, that's so interesting that you asked that question. And I spent a lot of time in New York myself. So I cut my teeth actually working as for Con Ed subcontractor for LED lighting upgrades. And it was in the early 2015 or so. I was part of the clean energy community there and was heavily involved with NYSERDA and a lot of the policy efforts that exist today around smart grid and incentives. And I have seen a number of companies come out with really amazing technology for as you said, completely plugless, cordless charging. I don't think, though, that the vehicles themselves, the vehicle technology has matured enough yet to make that a reality, because the vehicle has to be compatible with the charger. So for the time being, we're fully the integrator for ChargePoint and other mature charging technologies. I do think, though, that in the future, there's no doubt that some of those companies will mature, and we already see it. A number of companies, they're being acquired by larger companies, and huge R&D in the space surrounding batteries and specifically battery charging.
Cool. And so what do you think about bi-directional charging? So in addition to charging your vehicle, being able to use your charger as a mobile battery storage and discharge at the time that the grid needs it, and having revenue come from discharging at different times when the utility most needs the power. How does that look? And are you doing any of those bi-directional charging activities?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And with the bi-directional charging, you get to see your vehicle as a battery in itself. It's not just something that sucks battery, but you can save battery. You can charge up, use it to charge your home, use it to charge your devices during peak times to avoid demand charges. It's very exciting. I do think that there's a lot to be figured out from the vehicle side, the technology side, and also utilities. It is the most exciting, most complex time for utilities right now to think about how are they going to deal with all these new electric vehicles on the road? How are you going to charge them? You're now not only dispensing electricity, but you're going to be the largest fueling provider through electricity, and the role of the utility is changing. How are you going to think about demand response? And this is it's a very interesting problem that I frankly have not seen applied yet. I know they're in the works. The idea, though, of vehicle and charger and battery storage, this is something that we are engaged with a bit. So I'm seeing right now there's a new company out there. They're called Veloce, and it's a group of former executives from Tritium, which is a leading provider of DC level 3 charging stations. And they're coming out with a product which integrates battery storage with integrates battery storage and increases the electrical capacity of a charging system by over 50%. And this is these are gigantic cabinet refrigerator style batteries that live outside, exist on a parking lot, exist in without any trenching. And this is a huge innovation to what's possible for charging systems overall. And yeah, just a company to watch and regarding these solving these particular questions.
Outstanding. Yeah. I mean, in New York, we have a pilot project going on in White Plains with Con Ed, actually, where they're taking school buses, which school buses, electric school buses, they have 5 as a pilot in White Plains. And what they're doing is that these school buses are all electric, so they're charging them and running them around. But then during the summer, the school buses are just sitting there, right? So what they're doing now with the school buses is they're really batteries on wheels. And Con Ed has a pilot project going so that the school buses during the summer, when they're just sitting there, they charge them up at night and they discharge them during the day when the grid most needs the electricity during the peak times during the summer. And the buses are really cool. So there's actually a bunch of articles that have been done because the kids call them the singing buses because the buses were so quiet as being electric buses that they had to play music so the kids would know that the buses were coming and be ready for them. So yeah, really cute and great stuff. And a bus is like a megawatt of power on wheels, which is just really incredible. And I was blown away to find from another company, from Mata. I don't know if you've come across them at all, but they specifically have been working with Nissan, and Nissan Leafs, apparently all the current fleet of Nissan Leafs that have been sold in the United States have a 2-way charge discharge capability. And that capability across the fleet of Nissan Leafs in the country was actually, as of this last year, more than all the stationary battery storage in the whole country. So they were working on some technology, and I was blown away to find that my little Nissan Leaf could actually power the average American home for 3 to 5 days off of my battery. So I wouldn't need a generator. I would have the ability to disconnect from the grid, or if the grid went down, be able to run my house off of my car, which is a pretty amazing situation. So yeah, great stuff, right? It's just really neat. So, all right. So what kind of, yeah, it's really neat. I mean, you're in the right place at the right time. It's just so exciting. So when you see this transformation happening, what kind of changes do you see? What kind of outcomes do you anticipate as we get off of fossil fuels and start moving to get off of carbon and eliminate the carbon piece of our transportation system?
What do I see? Kind of feels like Jetsons era actually. When I hear about these gigantic climate change goals, like, oh gosh, like Biden declaring we will have 500,000 charging stations across the U.S. California state carbon neutrality. Every single vehicle will be electric, and this is only transportation. When we think about the consumer thinking changing, people like Teslas, people are thinking about Leafs. Charging is becoming cool. It's no longer the Prius like before, it gets a bad rep. But you also see people starting to change and turn away from single-use plastics. We're seeing businesses demand and consumers demand sustainability goals and sustainability movement from the businesses they procure from. It's really exciting time. And when it comes to vehicles, when you play it out the next 5 years and 10 years, there's still so much work to be done. Everyone is tinkering, and as it relates to Biden's infrastructure goals, he has allocated 176 billion, I believe, not 178 billion, to EV infrastructure, a large portion which will be in R&D. And it's just when it comes to the charging, the batteries, the vehicles. What also is a very interesting place that I don't think people are paying that much attention to outside of the industry is the financing. You see traditional banks like JP Morgan and Chase and Citibank and all these mainstream banks are now developing impact or developing electrification and infrastructure groups. You're seeing different private equity and venture groups specifically investing in infrastructure, which has traditionally been a less sexy place than, let's say, tech or different internet companies. And it's changing because we're not going to achieve these goals until we remove financial frictions that's preventing businesses of every type in order to transition. until not just the large publicly traded companies of the world, but the mom and pop shop, and then everything in between, unless they can afford it, and until we can also afford to make sure that our disadvantaged and low income communities and more denser people of color communities can afford the same permeation of the charging infrastructure and affording the vehicles for their people, you will have a constant landscape of financial tools and incentives continually emerging.
Neat. Wonderful. So, what kind of challenges have you encountered, and what lessons have you learned, and what are you doing differently now than you thought you'd be doing before when you first started your company?
Wow. Let's see. What did I think I was going to do? We actually started as a LED lighting company. And Ron, I think I remember seeing that you also dabble in energy efficiency too, right?
Yeah, I actually started out. So my career started in policy. So I was working on policy issues way back when. And then when I broke out from policy into applied technologies, lighting was actually it. And this was the time when electronic ballasts were just coming in. So T8s and going from T12s and magnetic ballasts to T8s and then into LEDs. So, and I'm still astonished today that not everybody has an LED light bulb in every outlet, in every socket. So, yep, indeed, LEDs, the place to be. So, why'd you get out of LEDs?
Yeah, so we were in LEDs. My first clean energy job, actually, I was a door-to-door free LED lighting salesperson in the Upper East Side, New York, with a clipboard, going from bagel shop to dry cleaner to hotel, auditing their spaces and saying, did you know you can get your lighting completely for free? And I tried to sell these systems, and it was excruciating, because in such a dense space, these people, these poor businesses are being solicited every day by multiple people, just like coming into their shop and claiming these, I can do this for free, and they get really aggressive. And frankly, that's because the business was so good. The incentives from Con Ed and from a federal level were so good for energy efficiency for a while. Well, that's what I thought. That was my thesis originally for GreenWealth, was the way in which people are being approached for these clean energy technologies, the way that their understanding is possible for them, it's wrong, and it's too kind of predatory. So I wanted to create a very neutral, for the customer-centric, trustworthy source where they can have all the incentives and reliability for energy efficiency for lighting. Well, since I started my company in 2017, things have evolved. LED has much more become the norm, and that's largely due to code changes. And rebates have gone down because it has become the norm. And so as rebates went down, I noticed a change in electric vehicles, and people talking about Tesla, people buying more vehicles. Charging was starting to become less of an amenity and nice to have, and more of a necessity for business. So that's why in 2019, we became partnered with ChargePoint, and we've since surveyed over 400 different properties throughout the state of California. But the thesis remains the same. It is forever evolving landscape for incentives and rebates. And the system as it is today, it's fragmented, it's opaque, and not everyone has access for this funding. And so we apply, instead of this thesis to lighting, we apply the same principles to charging. And this is what customers are looking for. And this is really the gap that exists in the marketplace today.
Outstanding. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So we call this part the supernova. One thing that you've done with clean energy, and a unique tip, tool, or tactic that you think people need to know, but probably don't. And maybe it's the one you just touched on, or maybe there's something else. So.
Supernova moment. Supernova moment.
Yeah, something that basically a unique tip, a tool, or a tactic that you think people need to know, but most people don't.
Two things. If you're in business and you're in clean energy, go to your elected officials to tell them what you think, because everyone is looking for advice right now. And Ron, you and I, we met through E2 Environmental Entrepreneurs, and I'm a proud chapter director of E2. through ETO, I've been able to speak with California legislators and even spoken to Congress in front of 70 different officials, both on the Democratic and Republican side. And one thing I could say about this experience is there are not enough business leaders talking directly and have a line of communication with these policymakers. And so I would urge anyone in the clean energy field to please get involved. And frankly, it's very easy. You can just walk into the Capitol building. There's barely even any security. So that's something that people might not know. The other thing I would say is it's really not that expensive for people who are outside the clean energy space. A lot of people are hesitant to think about lighting, think about charging or solar, because in their mind, these measures are very expensive. It's outside of their budget. But there are so many people competing for business now. There's so much pressure from government to get people to deploy. And so I would just urge people to get a quote, take the first step, because a lot of times people think about charging, they think about doing these things, and they never take the first move because of budget reasons. And so I would just urge people to be brave and try.
Yeah, it is really amazing, right? People have this perspective that it's all going to be so expensive, no way to come up with it. And a lot of times the returns on investments are 10, 15, 20, 25% and better with all the incentives out there. And then there's even ways of third-party financing so that you don't lay out a dime and you start saving from day one on almost all these clean energy technologies. So it's a really great point. Thank you, Ariel. All right. So this is the time when most entrepreneurs at some point in their time, they kind of had this really bad moment. And if you would care to share your worst clean energy environmental moment, the story behind it, and what was the lesson that you learned from it?
The worst environmental moment with the journey of the company.
Whichever one you want to, whichever you care to share, where you kind of hit bottom on something and then you learned something that brought you out and set you in a different direction than you thought.
Yeah. So I'll answer this possibly different from your other podcast interviewees, but it's very personal and real to me, which is a big shift that happened in me personally, which was, I feel like I was at the bottom and then something had changed. When I first started my company, I was 24, and I kept thinking in the back of my head, all these negative voices about you're too young, or you're a girl, or you don't know that many people. You don't have any customers though. You're leaving an incredibly stable and prestigious and secure job in order to use your savings to do your own company. And I also had family pressures then. Being Taiwanese American, I had what a lot of daughters of immigrant families have, which is parents that prioritize stability, professional careers. And so I would let that govern the way that I was running the business. To show you an example of how this transpired in business, I was afraid to go after the bigger contracts. I just always thought in my head that there were other companies. It was a old boys club. They give it to people that they know. And for years, at least 2 to 3 years, this has hugely stunted our growth because I could not see past this. One year I went to Light Fair International, which is the largest LED lighting show in the US. And I showed up, and this lighting industry is largely male dominated. I went to one of the booths and I was procuring LED lighting for about 60 properties at that time. And the way that I showed up and presented myself as a girl, I was just kind of scared. I just started my first company. And for 10 minutes, nobody would talk to me. They would just see right past me because I was invisible. And I want to say, as much as I want to say, well, this is an industry where we need to change people's minds, at the same time, this goes out to all the women and young girls that are listening to this podcast. You have to step into your power and you have to show up with the presence and authority that you want. And over the course of the company, that began to change. I went from somebody who I would only wear button-up shirts because I thought that would make me look more masculine. And I thought that I had to look more serious in that way to be taken seriously and be treated with respect as any other male business owner in this field. And I started to change, and I thought I have to be authentically myself. I have to ask and communicate for the things I want, which also is being fearless when it comes to going after the clients that I want. Some of those clients, for example, we just won a contract with the city of Los Angeles to certify all the green businesses in the city. And so that's one of the opportunities that came from not being afraid to ask. As you can see on this video, I also have red hair. And this is also, this is very new for me, dyeing my hair. I've always wanted to do this for the past 10 years, but I was afraid. I was afraid of altering my appearance to appear unprofessional, to appear not a CEO, but only in presenting myself as I am, has my spirit and also my power been able to come out and go chase after the opportunities and confidently lead my team in a way that is somebody who is content with taking the back seat, or content with taking on the persona of the woman in the workplace that unfortunately our society today has perpetuated for all of our existence, basically, and breaking those barriers consciously. So that I would say is my own personal supernova moment, and how that's translated in the business. We went from having one EV charging customer in 2018 to now we've surveyed over 400 buildings in California. And we're a top 3 sales producer and integrator for the largest manufacturer in the entire state, and about to go national. So my supernova moment to all, and whether you're working for a company or you're running an organization, or even your listeners who are interested in a career in clean energy and sustainability, I would say focus on yourself. Focus on yourself and where can you develop to have that inner strength, and then it will flow into your organization and in the things that you want to do.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. As a father of 3 young women, I totally appreciate your perspective, and thank you for sharing that. It's great. So really awesome. All right. I'm going to enter into what we call the pulsar round. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, and we're looking for your short, succinct, amazing, and mind-blowing answers. Are you ready?
Yes, pulsar round.
Here we go. All right. What's the best advice you've ever received, Ariel?
Oh gosh. Ron, I'm sorry. I'm like, my mind is like flooded with advice. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Love that one. And absolutely the truth. All right. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Supplements. Spirulina and probiotics.
Ooh, supplements.
Constant
Excellent.
energy.
All
Low
right.
caffeine. Caffeinate only when necessary.
Excellent. Outstanding. All right. An internet resource you think that folks should take a look at?
New York Times. New York Times. Keep a pulse on what is happening in the world and the industry.
Being from New York, hey, you know.
Yeah.
All right. A book you'd recommend to awesome Earthkind people, and why?
A book. I would recommend Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. Because
Outliers. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Why?
The book talks about the unconventional paths of people who become successful, and it's not always the A student. In fact, when you look at the spectrum of grades, it's the C student that does the best in business. And for anyone who feels like an underdog, especially as I have most of my life, huge permission and huge acceptance into following an unconventional path.
Outstanding. All right. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change one thing for everybody in the world, what would it be?
Awareness of themselves, self-awareness. Everyone will be touched by this wand, and they can no longer be ignorant of their effects on others, on the earth, in anything they do. They don't have to change what they're doing, but they just had to know, and they can't hide from knowing.
Outstanding. All right. This section we call WTF or F, weather time fudge, an extreme weather event that you lived through and tell the tale, or weather time fun, the most fun you've ever had and the type of weather it was. Care to share?
Great. So Ron, from New Yorker to New Yorker, I was there during Hurricane Sandy. I was living at the time on 28th Street, and this was the line separating Lower Manhattan to Upper Manhattan. Everything except 27th Street and below was completely pitch dark. Sandy came in, and for 3 or 4 days straight, we were on lockdown. A lot of my friends going to college at that time had nowhere to live. There were people in Times Square charging their phones desperately to get a little bit of charge because all of the bottom of Manhattan had no electricity. And it was such a surreal moment. And I remember in the middle of the night, everything, including the street lights, were not working. And the only light that you would see would be ambulances or police cars shining their light, and it was pitch dark. And my friends and I, we decided to take our bikes and ride through Washington Square Park, ride down Broadway in this completely desolate, dystopian, like after the apocalypse New York. And it was the most insane thing. I don't think I'll ever be able to experience that again. It's like a movie.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that just about everybody these days now has experienced some type of extreme weather event, and whether it's the fires out in California in the west, or the extreme heat up in the northwest, or Siberia at 100 degrees and the melting ice caps, or the flooding and the tornadoes and the hurricanes and the massive amount of extreme weather events that are becoming more frequent and more intense. The whole idea behind this is to recognize that we're all experiencing this, and that we all need to take our next step to create the solutions that we absolutely need to transform our society and have a positive impact instead of continuing on the path that we're headed. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. It's incredible. Yeah, Sandy was an amazing thing, and yeah, still communities recovering from that one. So, all right. What's the one thing you're most energized about today, Ariel?
Building $100 million EV infrastructure company in the next 5 years.
Woohoo!
Mark my word, I said it here first. To take a company that is completely bootstrapped from my savings account and my credit card and build it into a real organization that can help customers and help not only the biggest customers, but the tiny mom and pop shops that nobody else wants to help, and build a culture of people who are committed to the mission, are committed to being part of the biggest electrification event of our lifetimes and our kids' lifetimes. And that's what I'm most excited about.
Outstanding. And so what's your next step in the short term?
My next step. Well, we're in the process of raising funds, all of which will help us staff up. It's very exciting because myself as a first-time entrepreneur, this is a new place that personally I've never led a company at this place, though I have very trusted advisors to do so. But it really comes down to what's immediate. Our customers need help now. Businesses today need advice. They need resources to deploy charging stations. And for us, it's helping understand where the rebate landscape is, and helping find where we are in the ecosystem and help customers find their help. What's so interesting is as I've said earlier in the interview, a lot of sustainability officers of publicly traded companies, elected officials in cities, come to me personally. They say, I have to tell you something in secret, in confidence. I have no idea how to electrify our fleet. I have no idea how to even think about doing this. Can you please come in and just give a seminar or something for 2 hours so we get a primer on how to do this? Because mainstream, any business, private, public, nobody signed up to be an EV charger expert, clean energy transition expert. It's all so new. And we're just so lucky at GreenWealth that we get to engage and think on behalf of the customers, and everything is brand new.
Outstanding. All right, grand finale. If you would share a piece of parting advice for everybody and the best way for people to connect with you if you'd like them to.
Great piece of parting advice. Be the authentic you. Don't be afraid to be who you are. I'm out there. I'm speaking to conferences. I'm on these different podcasts and events. I'm not afraid to be my own mold and my own flavor. And I can't believe how far it's gotten me here. That a lot of people think that they have to follow a certain thing. They have to act a certain way to be professional. And I think what GreenWealth does and the culture of my company is whoever you are, if you care about this mission, if you want to work hard, come and we will find a place for you, an acceptance of those people. That's what I would recommend for anyone who wants to get ahead or even start their own company is the law of attraction there. Be you and attract the things that matter. And us being there now, we are attracting this energy of customers that want to transition to the clean energy future, that want to see a woman, person of color, a young person running a company, doing the hardest thing they could possibly do. This is the time, and this is this point in the history where something like me, like a person like me, can have a company for the first time, and it's well received by a lot of the population. And yeah, it's a privilege, and I wish all of the listeners the best. And ways to connect. LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that's always great. I welcome all connections there. I'm also on Clubhouse and also Instagram. So anyone feel free to message. I'm pretty responsive, and I look forward to connecting with your listeners.
And your website again is?
www.green, like the color, -wealth, like wealthy.com.
Great. Anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't touch on?
Any young people seeking mentorship, hit me up. There needs to be more mentorship. There needs to be people who have been established in their careers sending the elevator back down, because our country needs it, our states and our cities need it. With these huge climate goals, we're not going to get there unless we continue to mentor and share resources with other people that are just starting to be in this industry.
Wonderful. Ariel Fan, CEO of GreenWealth, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, and boy, looking forward to seeing all the different things you're doing, and especially coming back to New York. Woo!
Woo! It's going to be fall soon. The colors will be changing.
Exactly. It's going to be great. Love this time of year.
Thanks for joining us today, awesome people. We'd like to hear from you, and we'll give you the chance to win a $150 LED light fixture if you help us understand how Awesome Earthkind can help you achieve your clean energy goals. Just go to awesomeearthkind.com and click on Tell Us. When you fill out the survey, you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes for a free LED light fixture, and we'll be giving one away every month for the rest of the year. If you like what we're doing, please rate and review the Awesome Earthkind podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're interested in adding clean energy consulting to your existing business offerings, go to awesomeearthkind.com/earn. When you refer us to a commercial building and they decide to go clean and save green with Earthkind Energy's consulting services, your referral will save money and you'll earn finder's fees worth thousands of dollars. Remember, you are an awesome force of nature and can make a real difference. Take your next step to create the clean energy future we all want and our children need and deserve. Until next time, take care, be well, and energize.